At 9:12 a.m. on my 62nd birthday, the doorbell rang. Standing on the porch were my son, my daughter-in-law, and a lawyer clutching a thick stack of documents. "Happy birthday, Mom," my son said with a warm smile as the lawyer slid the file across the dining table toward me. "Just some routine paperwork to secure our family's future." I opened the folder and read the fine print inside. My son had absolutely no idea that I was harboring a secret worth $52 million. And he certainly had no clue what I planned to do next. So grateful you're here with Silent Revenge with Phoenix today. Tell me in the comments what country or city are you watching from. Hit subscribe and stay until the end. Note some elements are fictional, created for storytelling and educational purposes. Names and settings are coincidental, but the wisdom is something you can carry. 9:12 on a Tuesday morning in October, and the reason I remember the exact time is that I had just looked at the microwave clock while debating a piece of leftover coffee cake sitting on the counter in front of me. I had been standing there for probably 2 full minutes, coffee in hand, conducting the kind of internal negotiation that only becomes necessary once you are old enough to know better and stubborn enough not to care. I was 62 years old that morning. I decided the coffee cake had earned its place at the table and reached for it just as the doorbell rang. I set it back down and checked my phone. The front door camera showed 3 people on my porch. Brandon, my son, 34 years old, in a charcoal blazer and pressed dark slacks at 9 in the morning on a weekday when he had no reason I knew of to be standing on my doorstep. Beside him stood Chloe. His wife in a camel wool coat. I did not recognize her posture, slightly too upright for a casual visit. And beside her stood a man I had never seen in my life. Gray suit, leather briefcase held in both hands in front of him, like something he was delivering and did not want to drop. The 3 of them together on my porch on my birthday without having called first. I set my coffee down and went to the door. "Mom." Brandon's smile arrived before anything else wide and practiced the smile he had been using since childhood to lead with his best quality when he was uncertain about everything that came after it. "Happy birthday. Sorry we didn't call ahead." "Calling is free," I said. "Come in." The man in the gray suit extended his hand before he stepped through the door. "Carter Brooks, attorney at law." I shook it. My mother raised me with certain reflexes that decades of business had not entirely overwritten, and the accepting an offered hand was one of them. "What kind of attorney?" I said. "Estate planning, primarily." I looked at Brandon. Should I be worried? Not at all, he said, moving inside with the easy confidence of someone who had already decided how the morning was going to go. "It's just some paperwork we wanted to get in front of you. Stuff that should have been handled a while ago, honestly." There is a category of sentence that sounds like reassurance and functions as its opposite. It is just some paperwork belongs firmly in that category. Nobody arrives on a Tuesday morning with a lawyer and a briefcase to deliver news that requires no preparation. I led them to the dining room table. Carter Brooks set a manila folder on the table in front of me with the deliberate care of a man presenting something he expected to be accepted. He folded his hands on top of it and began talking about estate planning and asset protection and the importance of having structures in place as people get older to ensure that everything moves smoothly for the family. He used phrases like probate exposure and legacy preservation and simplifying things going forward. I let him finish. Then I opened the folder and began reading from page 1. He kept talking while I read, which was a technique I recognized from 30 years of sitting across tables from people who needed something from me. Fill the air with words. Make the silence feel like something to be avoided. The theory is that a person listening cannot also be reading carefully. The theory is wrong, but most people do not know that until the silence arrives anyway. I turned to page 3. The language in the 3rd paragraph under the section marked trustee authority had been written to be understood only by someone reading slowly. The paragraph used 4 dependent clauses and 2 sets of parenthetical qualifications before arriving at its point, which was this: the designated managing trustee of the Elder Asset Protection Trust, held sole authority to encumber, refinance, or leverage any real property held within the trust without requiring additional authorization from the grantor. The grantor was me. The designated managing trustee was Brandon. My hands stayed flat on the table. In 30 years of business, I had sat across from vendors, partners, creditors, and attorneys who were trying to get something from me, and I had learned that the most important skill in any of those rooms was the ability to understand exactly what was happening and not let your face know about it until you had decided what to do next. "Who drafted this document?" I said. "My firm," Carter Brooks said. "Who hired your firm?" A pause. "Small, but the kind that has content. Brandon engaged us on behalf of the family." I looked at my son. He was watching me with an expression I had seen on him before, specifically at 17, when he had made a decision that had not yet been discovered and was quietly calculating the distance between where things were and where they could still go wrong. "This transfers control of my home to you," I said. Brandon leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Mom, that is not what it is. It is a protective framework. If something were to happen to you, everything would already be organized. You would not have to worry about anything." "I am not worrying about anything," I said. "I am reading a document." Chloe reached across and placed her hand over mine on the table. Her touch was light and carefully calibrated. "We just want to make sure you are looked after," she said. "That is all this is." I found the signature page. My name was printed in clean type beneath a blank line with a small adhesive flag pointing at it, the kind of flag that says "sign here" without having to say anything at all. I closed the folder. "I am not signing this today," I said. "I have my own attorney and I would like her to review this before I sign anything. That is not a commentary on anyone in this room. That is simply how I handle legal documents." Carter Brooks began to say something about timing and how uncomplicated the agreement really was. I stood up from the table, which accomplished more than any sentence would have. I walked them to the door. On the porch, Brandon put his arms around me in the brief, firm way of someone concluding a business meeting. Chloe pressed her cheek to mine. Carter Brooks said the visit had been a pleasure, which I thought was generous of him, given how it had ended. I watched them back out of the driveway and turn onto the street. Then I went inside, locked the front door, and stood in the entryway with the folder against my chest for a long moment before something made me open it one more time. Near the back, between two signature pages, I found a sheet that had not been there when Carter Brooks first handed it to me. It must have been in his briefcase and slipped free when he gathered his things. The header read, "Collateral Authorization and Encumbrance Agreement." I read the first paragraph twice. The language was layered and dense, written in the way that legal language often is to be technically accurate, without being immediately understood. But the meaning was there, if you were patient enough to find it. If I had signed the trust document upstairs, this addendum would have given Brandon the authority to use my home as collateral for any debt connected to businesses he managed. No additional signature required, no notification to me, no consent sought or needed. I stood in my entryway on my 62nd birthday in my robe, holding a single sheet of paper that told me with complete clarity what my son had come here to accomplish on the morning I turned 62 years old. My husband used to say that the most expensive moment in any negotiation is the moment you understand what the other person actually came for. He repeated it often enough that the words had worn smooth from use like a stone carried in a pocket. Standing there that morning holding that page, I finally felt the full weight of what he meant. I locked the front door and stood with my back against it for a moment, the collateral authorization page still in my hand. The house felt different with them gone. Not quieter exactly. Houses do not get quieter after difficult things happen in them. They get more specific somehow, like every object in the room has stopped pretending to be part of the background and is now simply sitting there waiting to see what you do next. I walked to the kitchen and called Clara Evans. Clara had been my attorney for 19 years. Before that, she had been my college roommate's law school friend who I met at a dinner party and liked immediately because she was the only person at the table who disagreed with the host about something important and did it without raising her voice. We had been close friends for more than 40 years by the time I started paying her. She had never once made me feel like those two categories of our relationship were in conflict. She picked up on the second ring. "Tell me you are doing something enjoyable and not just standing in your kitchen worrying." "Brandon brought a lawyer to my house this morning," I said. A pause. Not long. Clara did not waste time on long pauses. "When did they leave?" 12 minutes ago. "Send me everything you have. I will call you back." I photographed each page of the folder and sent them while I was still standing at the counter. Then I put the kettle on, not because I wanted tea, but because boiling water takes 4 minutes and I needed 4 minutes of something to do with my hands that was not thinking. While the kettle heated, I looked around the kitchen. The corkboard my husband had mounted above the desk the first week we moved in slightly crooked, which I had never straightened because the tilt of it was so completely him that fixing it would have felt like an argument I was having too late to matter. The photograph of Brandon on the shelf below at age 12, squinting into summer sun outside our old house, on Maple Drive baseball glove, on his shoulder front teeth, still slightly ahead of the rest of his face. He had no idea in that photograph what his father and I were managing at the time. 2 weeks after it was taken, the company had been 11 days from closing. My husband had laid out the options at the kitchen table on a Sunday night, clear-eyed and methodical the way he approached problems he had not yet figured out how to solve. Selling the house was on the list. It was the logical move. The equity was accessible, the timeline was possible, and it would buy enough room to restructure. I had a different option that was not on his list. My mother had died the previous April. She had taught second grade for 29 years, kept a coupon binder in the kitchen drawer, until the week she went into the hospital and left me everything she had saved, which was modest and entirely hers. I had never touched it. I had never mentioned it to my husband because it had always felt like something that still belonged to her, more than to me, sitting in a separate account, like an inheritance I had not yet figured out how to accept. On a Thursday morning, I transferred the full amount into the business account without telling anyone. By the following week, the immediate problem had passed. My husband found out a month later during a routine account review. He came into the kitchen where I was making dinner and stood in the doorway long enough that I turned around to look at him. His face had the particular expression of a man who has just understood something that reorganizes the way he sees a long stretch of time. "That was your mother's money," he said. "It kept us going," I told him. He crossed the room and held on to me from behind in the way he had when what he felt was too large for words to carry correctly. That night in the dark before sleep, he said quietly, "You saved all of us." Brandon had grown up never knowing. The same house, the same school, the same baseball practices on Saturday mornings. All of it continuing because I had given away the last thing my mother left me, and I had never told him, and he had never asked. I was still looking at his 12-year-old face when Clara called back. "I have read everything," she said. "Tell me what it is." "The trust structure is aggressive but within normal parameters. The addendum is not." She took a breath. "If you had signed both documents, Brandon would have held authority to pledge your home as collateral for any debt tied to entities under his management. No additional consent from you required, no notification. The lender would have had a valid authorization to proceed." The kettle clicked off. I had forgotten about the tea entirely. "So he could borrow against my house," I said. "A willing lender could have accepted that document as sufficient authorization." "Yes." Clara's voice was the voice she used when she needed me to hear exactly what she was saying, and not what I might want to hear instead. "Nothing has happened. You did not sign. But I want you to understand what was being asked." "I understand," I said. "Good. One question." A brief pause. "In the past few months, has Brandon asked you anything about the house? Its value, whether there is a mortgage, anything in that direction?" The floor felt slightly less solid than it had a moment before. 4 months ago, Brandon had been sitting at this same counter on a Sunday afternoon finishing leftover soup, and he had mentioned in the middle of a conversation about nothing particular that a colleague of his was curious about the neighborhood, and did I have any sense of what houses on the street were selling for these days? I had said I had no idea. I had thought nothing of it until this exact moment. "Yes," I said. He asked about the house. Clara was quiet for one full breath. "Send me everything you have on his business," she said. "Names, entities, anything you have seen or heard. And do not let anyone into this house sign anything or speak to any financial institution without calling me first." A pause. "One more thing. If anyone brings you a gift in the next few days, particularly any kind of electronic device, do not use it until I have looked at it." "Why would someone bring me an electronic device?" I said. "Hopefully they will not," Clara said. "But I would rather ask you to be careful and be wrong than not ask and be right." We hung up. I stood at the counter and looked out the window at the backyard. The apple tree my husband planted our first fall in this house was losing its last leaves one at a time, slow and deliberate, like each one had made a private decision about when it was ready to let go. Then the doorbell rang. Chloe was standing on my porch alone, which was the first thing that surprised me. She was holding a large box wrapped in silver paper with a white ribbon looped around it, and she was smiling the way people smile in department store advertisements, wide and practiced and slightly too bright for a Tuesday evening in October. She had changed clothes since that morning. The camel coat was gone, replaced by a fitted burgundy jacket that probably cost more than my first car. "I know today didn't go the way any of us hoped," she said before I could say a word. I felt terrible about it the whole drive home. I wanted to come back and make it right. Behind her, the sun was going down over the rooftops across the street, turning everything orange and flat. I thought about what Clara had said 40 minutes ago. "Do not use any electronic device until I have seen it." "That's very thoughtful of you, Chloe," I said. "Come in." She set the box on the dining room table and clasped her hands together in front of her, watching me with that careful brightness still arranged across her face. "Open it. I picked it out myself. I thought it might make things easier for you." I sat down and pulled the ribbon loose. Inside the silver paper was a brand new tablet computer top of the line still in the manufacturer's box, the kind that retails for close to $800. "So you can video call us whenever you want," Chloe said. "And there's an app already set up on it for tracking household expenses, managing accounts, all of that. Brandon loaded it himself before I came over, so you'd have everything in one place." Brandon loaded it himself. I kept my face exactly where it was. "This is very generous," I said. "Thank you." She stayed for 20 minutes drinking the tea I made her and talking about nothing in particular, the restaurant, a trip they were considering, how quickly the fall had come this year. She was good at conversation, Chloe. She had a way of filling a room with words that left no space for the kind of question you actually wanted to ask. After she left, I stood in the hallway and looked at the tablet box on the table for a long moment. Then I picked it up, carried it to the closet in the back bedroom, and put it on the top shelf behind 2 boxes of winter sweaters. I did not plug it in. I did not open the manufacturer's seal. Then I called Clara. "Someone just brought me a tablet computer," I said. "Brandon loaded apps onto it before it was delivered." The sound Clara made was not quite a word. It was the sound a person makes when something they hoped would not happen has happened anyway. "Do not touch it," she said. "I am coming over tomorrow morning, and I am bringing someone with me." Clara arrived at 8:15 the next morning with a man named Patrick, who worked in cybersecurity and carried a laptop bag and a small black case of tools, and spoke in the precise, unhurried way of someone who spent most of his professional life explaining complicated things to people who did not want to hear them. Patrick put on a pair of latex gloves before he touched the tablet box. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen counter while he worked at the dining room table. Clara sat across from me with her reading glasses pushed up on her forehead and a yellow legal pad open in front of her, and she asked me to walk her through everything that had happened since the doorbell rang yesterday morning. I told her all of it. She wrote and asked questions and did not interrupt except to clarify. Patrick looked up from the dining room table after about 30 minutes. "Can you both come take a look at this?" We stood beside him while he turned the laptop screen toward us. He had connected the tablet to his own equipment without powering it on, directly running a diagnostic scan through an external port. "There is a piece of software embedded in the firmware of this device," he said. "It was installed before the tablet left whoever had it last. It is a keylogger, which means it records every keystroke made on the device and transmits that data to a remote server." He pointed to a line of code on his screen. "This is the destination address. Whoever set this up receives a copy of everything typed on this tablet. Passwords, account numbers, messages, everything." My coffee cup was on the counter behind me. I did not reach for it. I pressed both palms flat against the table instead, feeling the cool solidity of the wood beneath my hands. "Can you tell who set it up?" Clara asked. "The remote server address can be traced with the right tools," Patrick said. "That is a job for law enforcement or a forensic firm, not me. But I can tell you this was not accidental. This is not a factory error or a glitch. Someone deliberately installed this before the device was given to her." Clara looked at me. Her expression was calm in the way that meant she was working very hard to stay calm. "The purpose of a keylogger on a device given to someone who manages financial accounts," she said carefully, "would be to capture login credentials, account passwords, safe combinations if they are typed anywhere." Patrick nodded. "That would be the most likely objective, yes." The kitchen felt smaller than it had a moment before. I thought about my online banking portal, the account numbers I had memorized over years of use the investment platform, where I reviewed my portfolio every Sunday morning with coffee. I thought about how natural it would have felt to sit down with a new tablet and log into everything just to see how it worked. I thought about how close I had come to doing exactly that. "Package it as evidence," Clara said to Patrick. "Everything. Chain of custody from this point forward." He nodded and began photographing the device from every angle. Clara turned to me. Her voice dropped slightly, not because she was uncertain, but because what she was about to say deserved a smaller space. "This is no longer just a document dispute," she said. "Whoever did this committed a federal crime. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act covers unauthorized installation of surveillance software, and the penalties are serious." She paused. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer." "Ask me," I said. "Your housekeeper," Clara said. "Martha. How long has she worked for you, and when did you last notice anything unusual in the house?" The question landed somewhere behind my sternum. Martha had worked for me for 10 years. She had a key to the front door. She knew which drawer I kept my spare phone charger and which cabinet held the folders I used for financial paperwork and what time I left for my weekly appointment with my accountant. 10 years, I said. "Why?" Clara set her pen down on the legal pad and looked at me steadily. "Because I need you to act completely normal around her starting tomorrow. Do not change anything. Do not move anything. Go about your routine exactly as you always have." The refrigerator hummed. Patrick carefully sealed the tablet inside an evidence bag. "And Clara," I said, "what exactly are you looking for?" She picked her pen back up. "I am looking for who let them know your routine well enough to know this would work." Martha arrived at 8:45 Thursday morning, same as she had every Tuesday and Thursday for 10 years. I heard her key in the lock, heard the small shoulder nudge she always gave the front door because the frame swelled every winter and never quite returned to itself until April. I heard her bag go down on the entryway bench. I heard the closet door open and close. I was at the kitchen counter with my coffee, exactly where I always was. "Morning," she called. "Morning, Martha. Coffee's fresh." She came in and poured herself a cup with 2 sugars and enough creamer to turn it the color of late afternoon light, and she asked how my birthday had gone. And I said quiet, and she said quiet birthdays were underrated, and I agreed. and the whole exchange took less than 5 minutes and felt entirely ordinary. I watched her hands the entire time. Clara had called the previous evening after Patrick finished his sweep. Her voice had the particular quality it got when the news was certain and painful, and she was choosing the order of words carefully. Brandon had approached Martha 6 weeks ago, a coffee shop on Western Avenue 2 miles from my house. He had arrived knowing about Renee, Martha's daughter, 24 years old, 18 months out of a nursing program she had left when the loan payments outpaced her part-time income. Brandon had known the creditor the amount how far behind the payments were. He had not guessed. He had researched. He had access to more than I realized credit databases, public court filings, the kind of information that costs money to find and requires intention to look for. I had written Martha a check the previous Christmas, left it in an envelope on the counter after she mentioned Renee's situation once, briefly, while we were wrapping gifts. I had not made anything of it. I had simply done it. Brandon had been watching more carefully than I knew. Martha had agreed to photograph bank statements when they arrived by mail, to leave a burner on the stove, a door unlocked, small things that could be documented, things that build a record of a woman who can no longer be trusted to manage her own home. The word agreed moved through me like something dropped from a height. 10 years. Martha had sat with me the week after my husband's funeral when I could not open his closet, and she had done it without being asked, folding his shirts into boxes, with a slowness that told me she understood why it mattered. She had waited 3 hours in a plastic chair after a minor procedure 2 winters ago. She had known which shelf held the good scissors, and that I always missed the smoke detector battery until it chirped at 2 in the morning. 6 weeks ago, she had sat across from my son and said yes. I breathed through the tightness behind my ribs while I watched her wipe down the counter, move the dish rack 2 inches left, the way she always did, hum something without a melody. I mentioned the oak tree might need trimming before the first snow. She agreed. I smiled at the right moments. It was the most difficult thing I had done in 62 years, and she had no idea. Patrick's sweep had confirmed 2 devices, one behind the bookcase, one inside the smoke alarm casing installed by the technician Brandon had hired 3 weeks earlier under the cover of a carbon monoxide upgrade. Every word I had spoken in that office for 3 weeks had gone somewhere. I was filling a glass of water at the sink when the memory arrived the way they do, without warning, without permission. 3 years ago, the night before my husband died, Brandon had leaned close to the hospital bed and taken his father's hand. My husband's eyes had been closed most of that day. They opened slightly when Brandon touched him. Brandon said quietly enough that I almost missed it. "I'll take care of Mom. I promise Dad." My husband smiled. The small kind. The kind that costs something when you don't have much left to spend. He turned his head toward me just slightly, the way he did when he wanted me to know he had heard something that mattered. I had pressed my hand over my mouth in the corner of that room and cried because I believed I was watching my son become the man I had always hoped he would be. I set the water glass down on the counter. Brandon had kept his promise, just not in any way that room could have imagined. Brandon called Thursday morning while I was in the front yard pulling dead blooms off the last of the fall mums, dropping them one by one into the bucket at my feet. I looked at his name on the screen for a moment before I answered, not because I did not want to talk to him, because I needed to locate very deliberately the version of myself I was supposed to be right now, the one who had spent the past 2 nights doing nothing more suspicious than sleeping poorly and worrying about her son, the one who did not know about Martha or the devices in the office or the forensic examiner Clara had quietly retained the previous afternoon. I found her. I picked up. "Hey, Mom." His voice had the particular ease of someone who believes a conversation is already going his way. "How are you holding up? I've been thinking about you." "I'm well," I said. "Just putting the garden to bed for winter." "Good." A pause with something behind it. "Listen, I was wondering if we could spend some time together. Just the 2 of us, no lawyers, no Chloe, like we used to. Maybe Saturday morning I could come by, bring bagels from that place on Dempster you like." The place on Dempster. He had recalled it, specifically placed it in the sentence, with intention, the way you set a familiar object in a strange room to make someone feel safer than they should. "Saturday morning sounds lovely," I said. After we hung up, I finished the mums. The street was quiet. A dog barked twice down the block and went still. I worked through the last of the dead blooms methodically and thought about what Saturday morning was actually going to be. Clara called an hour later. I was sitting on the bench my husband had built the summer before he got sick in the backyard, cold enough to see my breath. "Brandon filed a change of beneficiary form with your life insurance carrier 4 months ago," she said. "The signature on the form is not yours. Our forensic examiner confirmed this morning that it is a traced reproduction from a scanned document." My free hand pressed flat against my knee. "Under Illinois law, filing a fraudulent insurance document is a Class 3 felony," Clara continued. "If any portion of the transaction crossed state lines, federal wire fraud statutes apply as well. The form designates Brandon as sole beneficiary. The coverage amount was increased at the same time to $10 million. I looked at the apple tree at the far end of the yard, stripped bare, except for 3 leaves near the top that had not yet made their decision. $10 million, prepared 4 months before a folder appeared on my dining room table, before Carter Brooks, before any of it. He had not come to my house on my birthday because he was desperate. He had come because he was ready. "There is one more thing," Clara said. "A deposit receipt for a residential care placement in Valparaiso, Indiana. Reserved 6 weeks ago. Brandon is listed as responsible party. The admissions agreement includes a 30-day restricted communication period for new residents. 60 miles from Chicago. 30 days of no phone access, no visitors without screening. 30 days during which my accounts would have been accessible through captured passwords, my house pledged through a document I had already signed, and a $10 million policy with his name on it sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere. All of it waiting on one signature I had not given." I stood up from the bench. "Saturday morning, Brandon thinks he is coming for bagels," I said. "I want everything on his business, his debts, every entity his name is attached to before he gets here." "That is exactly what I was hoping you would say," Clara said. "One more thing, the $3.5 million. Who holds it?" "Midwest Capital Group, a secondary lender specializing in distressed commercial debt." I walked toward the back door, breath coming out in small white clouds ahead of me. "Find out if it can be acquired," I said. "And Clara, do not tell anyone yet. Before I tell you what Brandon said when he sat down at my kitchen table that Saturday morning, comment the word 'still here,' so I know you're with me. Because what he used against me next was something I never saw coming, even after everything I already knew. Stay with me. And a quick note, the story ahead contains some fictional elements. If that's not for you, feel free to step away now. No hard feelings." Brandon arrived at 9 on Saturday morning with a brown paper bag from the bagel place on Dempster and 2 cups of coffee in a cardboard carrier. And for about 30 seconds, standing in my doorway, he looked so much like the son I had raised that something in my chest pulled in a direction I had not expected. He was wearing a gray sweater. I recognized one I had given him 2 Christmases ago, and his hair was slightly damp from a shower. And he smiled when I opened the door in the uncomplicated way he used to smile when he was 12 years old and had done nothing yet that needed to be forgiven. "Brought the everything bagels," he said, holding up the bag. "And proper coffee, not the stuff from a pod." "Come in," I said. I had moved the financial folders off the kitchen counter before he arrived and replaced them with a half-finished crossword puzzle and the Saturday paper folded open to the art section. The office door was closed. Martha was not there on Saturdays. The house looked exactly like the house of a woman who had nothing to hide and nothing to prepare for. We sat at the kitchen table. I put the bagels on plates and poured the coffee into mugs because I did not like drinking from paper cups in my own home. And Brandon talked about the restaurant for a few minutes, careful things, surface things, how the new weekend brunch menu was doing well, how he thought the North Side location had real potential if the right investors came in. Before he sat down, he reached into his coat pocket and tossed something toward Biscuit, who was already at his feet. "Still the same old softy," Brandon said, watching him take it. I listened and ate my bagel and said the right words at the right moments. Then Brandon set his coffee mug down and leaned forward with both forearms on the table. "Mom," he said, "I need to be honest with you about something." I waited. The business is going through a rough patch. It's nothing that can't be fixed, but there's a financing gap I need to close in the next couple of weeks. The bank needs additional collateral to extend the next round. He looked at his hands for a moment, then back up at me. "I need you to come with me to the bank, just to sign as a guarantor. It would be a short-term arrangement. 6 months, maybe 8. After that, the properties are generating enough revenue to stand on their own." I picked up my coffee. "What would I be guaranteeing?" "The loan, $3.5 million. He said it quickly, the way you say a large number when you are hoping the speed will soften it. "Against the house. It would be a lien, not a transfer. You would still own everything. It is just a formality." Just a formality. I had heard that phrase before. I had heard it 4 days ago at this same table from a man in a gray suit with a leather briefcase. "I need to think about it," I said. Brandon nodded, and I could see him recalibrating behind his eyes, deciding which door to try next. He picked up his coffee again and held it in both hands and looked out the kitchen window at the backyard. "You know Lily has been asking about you," he said. "Lily, my granddaughter. 6 years old, with her father's dark hair and her grandfather's stubborn mouth, and a laugh that could fill a room from wall to wall. She came to me every Friday after school, and we baked things and read books and walked to the park on the corner when the weather allowed, and she called me Grandma Dot, and she had named the throw pillow on my couch, Buster, for reasons she had never fully explained." My throat tightened. "She misses her Friday visits." Brandon continued, his voice gentle in a way that was not gentle at all. "Chloe and I have been talking about how hard it is for a child when family relationships get complicated, when there's tension between adults that she's too young to understand." He set his mug down. "We want to protect her from that. I'm sure you do too." There it was. Not a question. Not even really a threat in the legal sense. Just a sentence arranged so carefully that it said everything it needed to say without saying any of it directly. "We want to protect her. I'm sure you do too." My hands were around my coffee mug. I pressed them against the ceramic and felt the warmth of it move up through my palms, and I held on to that warmth the way you hold on to something real when everything around it is trying to become something else. "I understand," I said. Brandon's shoulders dropped slightly with relief. "I knew you would. We just need to get through this next stretch, and then everything goes back to normal." I nodded slowly. "Give me a few days to look at my schedule. I'll call you." After he left, I stood in the kitchen for a long moment. Then I walked to the office, unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk, and took out a folder I kept separate from everything else. Inside, it was a piece of paper I had put there years ago, folded in quarters, the creases soft from being opened and refolded more times than I could count. It was a sheet of loose-leaf paper, the wide-ruled kind from a middle school notebook, covered in the large, uneven handwriting of a 16-year-old boy who had not yet learned to keep his letters the same size. "Mom, I know I don't say this enough, but I want you to know that when I grow up, I'm going to make sure you never have to worry about anything. Not money, not the house, not any of it. I mean it. You deserve to just be happy. Happy birthday. Love, Brandon." I read it once. I folded it back along its old creases. I put it in the folder and closed the folder and locked the drawer. Then I sat down at my desk and called Clara. "He threatened to take away my access to Lily," I said when she picked up. Clara did not make a sound for a moment. "Are you all right?" My eyes were dry, my voice was steady. Somewhere behind my sternum, something had broken cleanly along a line that had been under pressure for a very long time, and oddly, once it broke, what I felt was not grief. What I felt was clarity. "I am," I said. "What did you find out about Midwest Capital Group?" Biscuit did not come to the bottom of the stairs Sunday morning. Every morning for 10 years, by the time I reached the 4th step from the bottom, I could hear his nails scrambling against the hardwood floor below the sound of a dog who'd been waiting all night and was now absolutely certain that waiting was finished. He would be there before I was his whole back half moving with his tail, because golden retrievers cannot contain that kind of feeling in one small place. Sunday morning, the stairs were silent in a way that told me everything before I reached the bottom. I found him in his bed in the corner of the kitchen. I sat down on the floor beside him and put my hand on his side and stayed there while the refrigerator hummed and the morning light moved slowly across the linoleum and a cardinal landed on the bird feeder. My husband had mounted on the fence post. The first spring we moved in, sat for a moment, looking at nothing in particular, then flew away. My husband had named him Biscuit. He said the puppy was exactly the color of a well-made biscuit, fresh from the oven, golden all over and warm to the touch. He made that joke every single time we introduced the dog to someone new for 10 years, and it never once got less funny to him. I used to roll my eyes. I would give a great deal to roll my eyes at that joke one more time. I called the veterinarian before I called anyone else. She arrived within the hour, unhurried and thorough, and she asked me careful questions about the past several days. I told her about the dog treats Brandon had pulled from his coat pocket Saturday morning, tossed to Biscuit, with the easy familiarity of someone who had always known the dog would take anything from his hand. She wrote things in her notebook without commenting. She asked if she could run a full examination and take samples. I told her yes, document everything, and please send all findings directly to my attorney, Clara Evans, as well as to me. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table and gripped the edge of it with both hands until my knuckles ached. Then I called Clara. "Biscuit died this morning," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected, which was either strength or shock, and I was not prepared to determine which. Clara was quiet for a moment. "I am so sorry," she said, and she meant it the way only someone who has known you long enough can mean something without explaining why. "The veterinarian is running tests," I said. "Brandon brought treats yesterday. I need everything in the file." "It will be there," Clara said. "Are you all right?" I pressed my fingers harder against the table edge and felt the wood grain under my fingertips, solid and real. "Tell me what you found about Midwest Capital Group." She understood. Clara had known me long enough to understand that sometimes the kindest thing a person can do is keep moving forward with you instead of asking you to stop. Midwest Capital acquired Brandon's debt from the original lender 11 weeks ago, she said. They specialize in distressed commercial loans, meaning they purchase debt from primary lenders at a discount when borrowers default. Brandon has missed 2 consecutive payment thresholds. The debt is available for secondary acquisition at a negotiated price. I looked out the window at the backyard. The bird feeder was empty. The cardinal had not come back. "Make the call," I said. "Whatever price they want. Run it through the investment fund, nothing with my name attached directly. And Clara, I need it closed before Thursday. I will have an answer by tomorrow afternoon." We hung up. I stood at the counter and made myself eat toast and half a grapefruit because my body needed something, even when the rest of me did not particularly care. I ate standing up because sitting at that table in that quiet kitchen felt like too much stillness for everything that was moving inside me. At 2:15, the doorbell rang. Chloe stood on my porch with a woman I had never seen, both of them in heavy coats against the November cold. Chloe's eyes were red in the particular way that takes preparation. I registered it and stepped back to let them in. What followed I will describe without decoration, because it requires none. Chloe raised her voice. She showed me marks on her forearm, 3 lines she said came from an altercation at my home the previous week. Her companion confirmed she had heard about the incident at the time. I had not touched Chloe. I had not been in the same room as Chloe during the previous week, except the evening of the tablet, which had been tea and careful conversation, and nothing else. The police arrived 11 minutes after Chloe called from my driveway. 2 officers, professional and thorough. I answered every question without agitation, gave them Clara's contact information, and mentioned in the same tone I would use to note the weather that my exterior cameras had recorded every arrival and departure from this property for the past 30 days, and that footage was stored on a cloud server accessible only to me. The female officer glanced at her partner. He wrote something in his notebook. Chloe's companion stopped nodding. After the officers left, I closed the front door and stood with my back against it, one hand flat against the wood. Then I walked to the kitchen, picked up my phone, and called Clara. "Chloe filed a police report against me this afternoon," I said. Clara exhaled slowly. "Tell me everything." "I will," I said. "But first, tell me the debt is done." A single beat of silence. Then, "The fund made an offer 2 hours ago. Midwest Capital accepted. Paperwork closes Wednesday morning." I looked at Biscuit's empty bed in the corner of the kitchen. The blanket still shaped to him, the worn patch along the edge where he always rested his chin. "Good," I said. "Then let's talk about the party." Clara came over Wednesday morning with a folder that was thinner than I expected given what it contained. She sat across from me at the kitchen table and opened it without preamble. 2 pages. A transfer confirmation from Midwest Capital Group dated that morning, and a 1-page summary of the acquired debt instrument. At the bottom of the summary in the field marked current lien holder was the name of the investment fund I had established 17 years ago with the proceeds from my husband's first company sale. My name was not on the document, the fund's name was. But the fund was mine entirely and without exception, and had been since the day we created it. I read both pages twice. Then I set them down on the table and looked at Clara. "So when Brandon walks into that bank to discuss his financing options," I said, "he is walking in to talk to me." "Effectively, yes," Clara said. "As the debt holder, the fund has full authority to demand immediate repayment, negotiate restructured terms, or initiate foreclosure proceedings against the assets Brandon pledged as collateral when the original loan was made. His restaurant properties, his equipment, his business accounts." She folded her hands on the table. "He has no idea the debt changed hands. Midwest Capital was not required to notify him until formal demand is issued." I thought about Brandon sitting across from me on Saturday with his everything bagel and his careful smile, telling me the business just needed a short-term arrangement. 6 months, maybe 8. "He came to my house to take something from me," I said. And the entire time I was already holding the thing he needed most. Clara looked at me steadily. "What do you want to do with it?" I stood up and walked to the kitchen window. The backyard was gray and still the apple tree bare the bird feeder empty. I had not refilled it since Sunday morning. I had not been able to make myself go out there yet. "I want to end all of it in one room," I said. "Brandon, Chloe, Carter, Brooks, every investor and lender who has heard my name attached to this project. I want them all in the same place at the same time." I turned around. "And I want Brandon to walk in, thinking he is about to solve his problem." Clara was quiet for a moment. "You want to host it?" "It is my birthday month," I said. "I am 62 years old. Nobody will question a party." Clara picked up her pen. "Guest list. Everyone Brandon needs to impress," I said. "His investors, his lenders, his business partners, the people whose opinion of him still matters to him." I sat back down. "If he thinks I am finally coming around, he will want them there to see it." Clara wrote for a moment without speaking. Then she looked up. "And the other things, the insurance forgery, the key logger, the police report." "All of it," I said. "One night, one room." I looked at the closed door of the office down the hall where the devices had been, where Martha had moved through my things, where I had spent 30 years building something that belonged to me. I have been patient long enough. Clara closed her folder. "Then we have work to do." The guest list took 20 minutes to write and the rest of the week to think about. I sat at the kitchen desk with a legal pad and went through Brandon's world methodically the way I used to go through vendor contracts back when my husband and I were still building something together, and every name on a page meant something specific. I wrote down the 2 private investors who had put money into the restaurant group. I wrote down the representative from the commercial lending firm Brandon had been courting for the next financing round. I wrote down his business partner from the North Side location, a man named Gerald Marsh, who had been copied on several of the emails Clara had reviewed. I wrote down Carl Hennessy, who'd been my husband's attorney for 20 years, and who Brandon had always been slightly afraid of for reasons Brandon probably could not have articulated, but that I understood completely. 22 names. Every one of them, someone Brandon needed to impress, reassure, or avoid disappointing. I addressed the invitations myself. Dinner and celebration, the card read. Belated birthday gathering, long overdue. The venue was a private dining room at a hotel in the Gold Coast, the kind of room that communicated a certain ease with money without announcing it. Brandon called the morning the invitations went out. Mom. His voice had the particular warmth it only got when something had gone his way. I got the card. This is really wonderful. I'm glad you're doing this. I wanted to celebrate properly, I said. I felt like the birthday itself got away from me. It did, he said, and I could hear him recalibrating in real time, deciding what this meant, how far ahead he could now see. Chloe and I will be there. Can I say a few words? I'd love to say something about you in front of everyone. I was hoping you would, I said. We hung up. I held the phone for a moment and looked out the front window at the oak trees along the fence line, bare and patient, against the gray November sky. Clara arrived that afternoon with a notary and a document I had spent 3 evenings reviewing word by word. We sat in the office, the same room where the listening devices had been, where Martha had moved through my files, where I had built the better part of my financial life over 3 decades. The will was 4 pages. Clara had drafted it carefully with language designed to withstand any challenge. The relevance section was on page 3. I had read it so many times the words had stopped looking like words. To my son Brandon, I leave the sum of $1, this amount, being intentional and not the result of inadvertence or oversight. Under Illinois law, that language closed the door on any claim of accidental omission. Brandon could not argue he had been forgotten. He could only argue he had been seen clearly and decided upon deliberately. I signed on the designated line. The notary witnessed and stamped. Clara countersigned as a second witness. The whole thing took 11 minutes. That night, I turned off the office light and walked down the hallway to the kitchen. I stood at the counter for a moment in the dark, not because I needed anything but because the house was quiet in a way that felt different from loneliness. It felt like the quiet before something that had been building for a very long time finally arrived. I went upstairs. There was work left to do, but not tonight. Tonight was enough. The private dining room at the Gold Coast Hotel held 22 people comfortably, and every chair was filled by 7 o'clock. I stood near the window when Brandon arrived talking to Carl Hennessy about nothing in particular, and I watched my son work the room the way he always had, the handshake that lasted exactly the right amount of time, the eye contact held just long enough to feel personal. He was good at this. He had always been good at this. He crossed the room and hugged me. "You look wonderful, Mom." "Thank you for coming," I said. Clara was already positioned near the side door. At 7:20, Brandon tapped his glass and the room settled. He straightened his jacket and looked around at the faces of every person whose opinion of him still mattered, and he smiled the smile I had known since he was 12 years old. "I just want to say a few words about my mother," he began. Clara touched the small remote in her hand. The screen at the front of the room came to life. The first image was the keylogger report with the device serial number and the destination server address highlighted in red. The second was the forged insurance beneficiary form with the forensic examiner's annotation, noting that the signature was a traced reproduction. The third was the intake paperwork from the Valparaiso facility with Brandon's name in the field marked responsible party. The fourth was the police report Chloe had filed alongside the timestamp footage from my exterior cameras showing no altercation had occurred. Brandon's hand tightened around his glass. His mouth opened and closed, once the motion of a man who had prepared for every version of this evening, except the one that was actually happening. "Mom," he said, "just that. One word and nothing after it. As of this week, I continued, the debt that has been the subject of considerable urgency belongs to my investment fund. I am the sole lien holder. That fund has held $52 million for the better part of a decade. You have $52 million. It was not quite a question. His voice came out smaller than he intended, the voice of someone whose internal architecture has just shifted without warning. Someone near the back of the room made a sound that was not quite a cough. I continued, I am establishing 2 funds this month, one to support residential care facilities that prioritize dignity and family access, one to provide scholarships for women over 50 returning to education. I looked at Brandon directly. My attorney submitted the full evidence packet to the state's attorney's office this morning. That process will move forward on its own timeline. Brandon set his glass down on the nearest table. Chloe was already moving toward the door. I looked at my son one last time across a room full of people who now understood exactly what had happened. You came to my house on my birthday, I said, to take something from me. I want you to know that I spent every day since then making sure there was nothing left for you to take. I stepped away from the screen. Clara was beside me before I reached the door. We walked out together into the corridor, and the door closed behind us, and the city outside the window was full of light, going in every direction at once, and I put one hand on the railing along the wall and held on for a moment. Not because I was falling, but because some moments deserve to be held onto, even the ones that cost you something you can never get back. People ask me if I regret any of it. I don't. But I do regret the years I spent believing that love from a child meant safety. Love and intention are 2 very different things, and I learned that the hard way. Revenge stories with mom like mine are never really about revenge. They are about a woman who spent 62 years building something and one October morning had to choose between keeping it and keeping the peace. I chose myself. God gave me the clarity to do it quietly, without anger, and without apology. And I would do it again. If you are in a situation where someone is asking you to sign something you do not fully understand, don't. Not for family, not for anyone. The family revenge stories that break people apart always begin the same way, with a signature given because someone did not want to seem difficult. Don't be that person. I almost was. My personal belief is simple. Protecting what you built is not selfishness. It is self-respect. These revenge stories with mom remind us that the people closest to us are not always the safest. Being loved does not mean being protected, and silence is not the same as peace. More family revenge stories like this one exist because families are complicated, and money makes them more so. If you have seen this in your own life, you already know what I mean. If you haven't, I hope you never do. But if you do, remember this story. If today's revenge stories with mom moved something in you, leave a comment and tell me what you would have done in my place. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if this is your first time here, subscribe so you never miss another story like this one. Family revenge stories deserve to be heard. Thank you for staying until the very end. It means more than I can say. The story you just heard contains fictional elements created for storytelling and educational purposes only. If this type of content is not the right fit for you, we completely respect that. Please feel free to explore other content that suits you better. We will be here whenever you are ready.